Last presenter is Professor Mark Moldwin from University of Michigan, and is also the director of the Michigan Space Grant Consortium. He's the Arthur Furneaux Professor of Climate and Space Sciences and Engineering and Applied Physics within the University of Michigan's Department of Climate and Space Sciences and Engineering. He's a president of the American Geophysical Union Education Section and the executive, as I noted, he's the director of the Michigan Space Grant. Mark, I will let you take it from here.
Great. Good morning, everyone. And thanks for attending the Great Midwest Space Grant mini talk. I just wanted to also introduce and thank the rest of the leadership in the Michigan Space Grant. Deborah Warwick is our program manager. Katie Klink is our communications manager. And we have a work study intern, Caleb Clover, that's been helping with us. And we've just brought on a new intern to help with one of the programs that I'll describe. I'll try to briefly describe two of the projects that we've been doing as part of the NASA Michigan Space Grant Consortium to attempt to expand our community and also attract more resources for our efforts. So let's see. So I'm a space physicist and space engineer, and I build instrumentation for studying how energy flows throughout space. And part of my sponsors not only have been NASA, but also part of the DoD and the intelligence community. So when I became the director, I started to think about having my program managers introduce me to the DoD and the intelligence community's program managers that are involved with their education and workforce development. And so we've been attempting and being successful in some parts, expanding the space grant efforts by partnering with others. This one we call Sensor STEM Education Network for Sensor Research, is funded by the Navy's STEM education program. And several years ago, there was a white paper written looking at the DoD and particularly the Navy's education and workforce needs. And it was highlighted that you could essentially have taken that report and replaced Navy with NASA, essentially the same type of STEM workforce issues and STEM content issues that NASA is doing through its Space Grant Consortium is also the same that the Navy is pursuing. And so there was a white paper suggesting that the DoD partner with other federal agencies. And so we wrote a white paper that was funded at $250K a year for 3 years to develop this new NASA Navy STEM partnership. And essentially it has 3 components to it. And the middle component, summer research experience, is aligned with our Michigan Space Grant Consortium NASA internships and fellowship program. And the other ones are also connected to the same type of STEM education that we're trying to do throughout the state of Michigan. But we're developing a new summer lab course, primarily for first year underrepresented students in engineering. The first year we had 72 students on campus for a 6-week experience, where this past year we've had 50 students in a 4-week virtual experience. But essentially we give them, and like Purdue do a lot of mailing of kits this past year, give them experience with Arduinos and programming and sensor technology. And so we're hopeful that we'll be in a post-pandemic world sooner rather than later, and we can go back to in-person. But this is funded through 2022. Part of that work is also involved with developing connections with local industry, which is also part of the Michigan Space Grant Consortium. Mission is to develop partnerships with other universities, K-12 schools, nonprofit education sector, local and federal governments, but also industry. And so we've been able to connect these students here in southeastern Michigan with the automotive tech centers. This is a picture from the previous summer where we brought the students out to the General Motors Tech Center, where they spent the day meeting with other engineers and learning about some of the work. We also brought them to the Toyota Tech Center, where they got to see some crash test dummies. But one of the aspects of this Navy STEM initiative is essentially to think about the broader Great Lakes. And so this is a natural connection with the Great Midwest Space Grant Consortium, that all of the Great Lakes states can have connections with more of the sort of the naval architecture type of naval skills. In Indiana is our closest Navy facility, the Crane Naval Surface Warfare Center, but there's also other facilities throughout the Great Lakes. Our Senator, Governor Gary Peters, he's a Navy veteran. And also one of the things I've learned is that Michigan is number 50 out of 50 in terms of Department of Defense expenditures. And so we're not an EPSCoR state, but trying to convince all the program managers of the DoD and the IC community that investment in STEM education and research initiatives in Michigan is worthwhile. So one of the interesting aspects of this Navy work, as well as I also have contracts with the Air Force and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, part of the DoD intelligence community, is finding how many people at the University of Michigan and in the state of Michigan, as I mentioned, our senator's a Navy vet, but there's a surprisingly large cohort of Navy veterans on our faculty, in our staff, and in our student population. And so there's natural ways to get volunteers to talk about STEM degrees. Our ROTC program, about 3/4, a little bit more than 3/4 of the ROTC cadets in the different branches of the military are STEM majors. And so it's a natural population to connect, and the DoD is very anxious to diversify their ranks and leadership, and that's right aligned with our efforts in the Michigan Space Grant. University of Michigan also has a Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering department that provides a natural connection to sort of the STEM aspects. And just this last year was able to meet with the current Secretary of the Navy, Kenneth Braithwaite, and just last month we hosted Don Winters to give a seminar in our department here. So this Navy connections enable a lot of opportunities for mentoring and connecting students with professionals. Don Winters was a former CEO of TRW, so a lot of the industry connections. So what we've done the first 2 years of this program, we've had 72 first-year engineers. 100% of them were URM female or low socioeconomic status students, which again is aligned significantly with our NASA space grant objectives. We were able to support 15 summer research students in the last few years. 15 of those were URM or female, and this has enabled us to expand our space grant fellow program by essentially injecting about $50,000 a year more for summer fellowships. And so using similar mechanisms to support our NASA fellowships, we have these Navy NASA fellowships. We've started a communication plan and integrating the Navy effort through our NASA MSGC communication channels as well. And one of the things that our Navy and our NASA program managers appreciate is this overlap and leveraging of the different federal sort of STEM engagement and education efforts. And one of the interesting aspects of the Navy connection, obviously, as we start developing more human spaceflight, we've had our first water landing this year of astronauts since the Apollo era. And one of the new astronauts is not only a Harvard educated MD, but he's also a Navy SEAL that connects to a certain population. The other aspect of trying to broaden our communities is developing C, science, engineering, and art, trying to think about interdisciplinary work. We have in our guidelines for our NASA internships and fellowships and our faculty seed grants, we have an interdisciplinary evaluation criteria, but the weighting of that has sort of diminished over the years, and because often the interdisciplinary nature would be I'm doing math and physics, and really didn't think about more broadly connecting to the social sciences, the humanities, and the arts. And so we're attempting to make that more explicit, sort of put a science, engineering, art, or STEAM type of efforts in a lot of our programming. One of the programs that we've been doing is funding artists, musicians, dancers, and architects to do essentially an art residency in a lab of an engineering or science faculty, and vice versa, having artists and dancers bring engineers and scientists into their studio and performance space to help contribute to the work that they're doing. And so this is run through the University of Michigan's Art Engine program, which is designed to promote these interdisciplinary work. We've been successful to get funding from 5 of our deans who are trying to promote interdisciplinary research. And so we've been able to grow this from essentially a Moldwin Prize, me, to this past year, we've had 6 faculty welcome interdisciplinary students into their into their studios and labs. And this year, in academic year 2020, we also developed a new program called FEAST, Faculty, Engineering, and Arts Student Teams, and it's based off of our multidisciplinary design team and our senior capstone, where you bring together groups of students from different disciplines to solve a complex coupled problem, a design challenge. And this year we were able to get 14 faculty to help participate. And the students just went through that selection process and will be beginning winter 21. So my last slide is sort of the future. 2021 is meaningful for Michigan in that we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Apollo 15, and they're famous for the all-Michigan crew. We're not able to compete with Purdue in terms of alumni astronauts, but we have a number of them, and I don't know how it happened, but for Apollo 15, all 3 of the astronauts attended the University of Michigan. And so we're hoping to have a sort of mini Purdue Space Day this July to welcome the community onto campus, to celebrate the past and also look forward to the future. And we're hoping to get astronaut Christina Cook, who's a Michigan native who just set the long duration record for female astronauts, to kind of give a keynote for that celebration, so we can demonstrate to students that the next generation of explorers look very different than the Apollo era. So with that, I'll end and hopefully have time for questions.
Thank you, Mark. We do have time for a couple of questions, maybe one or two.
I was wondering if you could elaborate on the artists interacting and engineers interacting with one another's spaces. Is this a semester-long project or is it an afternoon project? And could you just tell me more about it?
Sure. The art residency is so essentially take a composer or musician or dancer or artist, architect, and actually embed into a research lab. And so they're welcome to attend group meetings. And the sort of win-win is the goal is that the students are sort of required to describe what they're doing to somebody that doesn't speak the jargon. So it helps them with their elevator pitch. And the requirement, they're given $1,000 sort of commission for this art residency, and they need to create something. And that creation is inspired by that work. And one of the images I showed on my slide was this 3D metallic sculpture that had fluorescent, it was a coronal mass ejection, which is a thing in space that they were able to do. And over the last 3 years, we've had students that participated in that win art science competitions, both locally, but also an international competition last year on multimedia, where we had a augmented reality model with a composer who made the tune. And as you flew through space in this augmented reality, the score changed. That was very cool.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. I mean, I want to be respectful of people's times if they need to leave. However, we do also have Mark's contact in that flyer. So I take it you're open folks reaching out to you if they have further questions on any of this.
That would be great.
All right. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for once again attending our Midwest presentation series, and forward to seeing you on other ones sometime soon.